Welcome to episode 298 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It is August 25, 1928. Hillsborough. The Wednesday against Arsenal. The new English First Division season is kicking off. 22 players. Eventually, Wednesday win 3-2. But there's something strange on the players' backs. Numbers. And down in London, something similar is happening. Chelsea against Swansea Town. Chelsea's outfield players have numbers too. They win 4-0. Today, if somebody walked onto a football pitch without a number, it would look peculiar. In 1928, the number was the peculiar bit. And for the first time in English Football League matches, supporters could now look at the back of a shirt and use a number to work out exactly who they were watching. Football had discovered something revolutionary: counting. But how did we get here? First, we need to rescue this story from Herbert Chapman, because you will often read that Chapman introduced shirt numbers to football. He certainly helped introduce them to English league football, but he didn't invent them, not remotely. In fact, the trail goes back to other kinds of football. Rugby and Australian rules were experimenting with numbers in the 19th century. When New Zealand's rugby team toured Australia in 1897, the players wore numbers on their jerseys. The point was very simple: identification. Buy a scorecard, look at the player's back, match his number to his name. Suddenly, the man you had never seen before was not simply that bloke over there. And association football, the kind we talk about on this show, in the 1800s England shortened to soccer, seems to have borrowed the idea. Modern research into Australia and New Zealand's football history has found numbered association football teams as early as 1904 and 05. There's even a photograph from a 1905 match between New Zealand and the Sydney representative side showing numbers on both teams. And here's the interesting part. Those early numbers did not necessarily mean what we think they mean today. In the 1904 New Zealand-New South Wales lineup, number 1 was not the goalkeeper. It was the outside right. The goalkeeper was 11. The number was simply an identifier, not yet a job description. And yes, American football was doing something very similar. In 1905, Drake and Iowa State won numbered jerseys in a college football game. Again, that was in 1905. There, too, some coaches disliked the idea. It made star players easier for opponents to identify. And, perhaps worse, it seemed to celebrate individuals in what was supposed to be a team sport. So American football was very early. It's somewhat lost in the archives whether association football simply copied the American game. If anything, the clearest direct route into soccer runs from New Zealand rugby into Australasian association football. Two versions of football arriving at essentially the same practical solution at roughly the same time. Then the idea spreads. In 1922, Australia and New Zealand meet in Dunedin. It appears to be the first full international where both national teams wear numbered shirts. Again, this wasn't England versus Scotland or Italy versus Austria. No, it was Australia versus New Zealand. In 1923, Third Lanark tour Argentina and play a Zona Norte selection. Numbers again. In 1924, in the United States, Vesper Buick wear them against the Fall River Marksmen in the National Challenge Cup final. So by the time English football discovers this supposedly revolutionary idea, the rest of the world has been leaving clues for years. And even Chelsea get there before today. In 1927, manager David Calderhead experiments with numbers in a trial match. His explanation is beautifully uncomplicated. He wants spectators to be able to identify young players they don't recognize. Which brings us to Herbert Chapman. Chapman arrives at Arsenal in 1925 and becomes one of football's great modernizers. Tactics, training, stadium development, floodlights, communication. He thinks about football not simply as 11 players against 11 players, but as something people are watching and listening to. And there is even a tantalizing Australian connection here. Chapman's future assistant, Tom Whittaker, had toured Australia with Arsenal as a player in 1925. There, he would have encountered footballers already wearing numbers. So did Whittaker bring the idea back to Chapman? Maybe. We can't prove it. But 3 years later, Chapman's Arsenal are ready to experiment. August 25, 1928, opening day. Arsenal travel north to Hillsborough. The Wednesday, not yet formally called Sheffield Wednesday, are their opponents, and the players appear wearing numbered shirts. At Stamford Bridge, Chelsea do the same against Swansea. Chelsea's goalkeeper, though, remains unnumbered. The 10 outfield players were 2 through 11, and suddenly the basic architecture of football numbering becomes visible. 1 is the goalkeeper, 2 and 3 are the fullbacks, 4, 5 and 6 the 3 halfbacks, and then the 5 forwards. The 7 is the outside right, 8 is the inside right, 9 is the center forward, 10 is the inside left, and 11 the outside left. The formation is 2, 3, 5, and the numbers simply map the team from back to front. The results? Well, not particularly important on that day, but for the record, Wednesday 3, Arsenal 2, and Chelsea 4, Swansea 0. What matters is what the spectators can certainly do. Identify the players. The press notices immediately. The Daily Express reports that supporters at Stamford Bridge could now give credit for a piece of good play to the correct player. The Daily Mirror calls numbered jerseys a success and predicts that the idea has come to stay. Well, eventually it did. English football's authorities remain suspicious. The experiment doesn't immediately become standard. 5 years later, though, numbers receive a much bigger stage. The 1933 FA Cup final. Everton against Manchester City. Everton were 1 through 11. City were 12 through 22. Dixie Dean is number 9. And now the innovation is impossible to miss. For people high in the Wembley stands, it helps. For journalists, it helps. For radio commentators trying to describe 22 moving bodies from a distance, it really helps. But still, resistance continues. Only in 1939 does the Football League finally approve numbered shirts as standard, more than a decade after the 2 matches on this day in 1928, and several decades after Australasia had started experimenting with them. But so what? Well, something unexpected happens. A number designed merely to tell us who somebody is begins telling us what somebody is. Tactics change. The old 2-3-5 disappears, but the numbers move with the positions. The center half drops deeper into defense, and number 5 becomes associated with the center back. Eventually, Franz Beckenbauer wears it, and turns 5 into something majestic. The libero, der Kaiser, a defender who seems to conduct the entire match from behind everybody else. Today, Bayern München have gone one step further. They will never issue number 5 again. It belongs to Beckenbauer. Then there's number 1, the goalkeeper. Lev Yashin, Gordon Banks, Dino Zoff, Gianluigi Buffon, Peter Schmeichel, Iker Casillas, Manuel Neuer. Different eras, different styles. One number that still tells you exactly what job somebody probably does. 9 becomes the goal scorer, the center forward, the player closest to goal. Ronaldo, Batistuta, Lewandowski. Even now we talk about teams needing a, quote, proper number 9, unquote. Not a striker, but a number 9. 7 becomes speed, invention and glamour, and nowhere more than Manchester United. George Best, Eric Cantona, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo. Eventually Ronaldo did something completely new with it. He turned a shirt into a trademark, CR7. Then, of course, number 10. We talked about that 8 days ago, when Lionel Messi made his Argentina debut. The 10 went from being the old inside left to football's great creative inheritance. And one of the strangest parts of the story is that perhaps the most important number 10 of all received it almost accidentally. At the 1958 World Cup, FIFA's own history says Brazil failed to submit their squad numbers, so the organizers allocated them. Goalkeeper Gilmar ended up with 3, defender Zosimo with 9, and a 17-year-old reserve named Pelé got number 10. He scored 6 goals. Brazil became world champions, and 10 was never quite an ordinary number again. Pelé, Maradona, Platini, Zico, Riquelme, Messi. They all wear 10, and people expect something. Then there's 14, Johan Cruyff. That one was an accident too. Cruyff normally wore number 9, but when he returned from injury for Ajax in October 1970, his usual shirt was unavailable, so he took a spare. It had 14 on it. Ajax beat PSV, and Cruyff kept it. And a number outside the traditional starting 11 became one of the most famous numbers in football. Ajax no longer issue 14 to their first team. Which brings us to retired numbers. And that is perhaps the ultimate transformation. In 1928, numbers exist because clubs want players to be easier to identify. Eventually, a player becomes so identified with a number that the club decides nobody else should ever wear it. AC Milan retired Franco Baresi's number 6. Ajax retired Cruyff's number 14. Bayern retired Beckenbauer's number 5. Manchester United withdrew Marc-Vivien Foé's 23 after his death in 2003. And Argentina even tried to retire the most famous 10 of all. Before the 2002 World Cup, however, the AFA wanted number 10 removed from Argentina's squad in honor of Diego Maradona. FIFA said no. Tournament regulations required the numbers, so Ariel Ortega wore 10. Even Maradona could not defeat the numbering system. And in the meantime, the system itself had changed again. At the 1954 World Cup, players received fixed squad numbers for the tournament. By the 1990s, English club football moved from numbers assigned to positions to numbered assigns permanently to players. And there's a magnificent little circle in this story. 1993, one of the great landmarks in England's move toward fixed squad numbers, comes in the League Cup final. The teams, Arsenal and Sheffield Wednesday, the same two clubs who had been standing on that Hillsborough pitch 65 years earlier when English league football first tried numbers on its back. By then, the number no longer necessarily tells you where somebody plays. It tells you who somebody is, and sometimes who they believe themselves to be. A childhood hero, a birth year, a lucky number, a personal brand, a family story, an inheritance. Before we go, 3 things to take away from August 25, 1928. First, this is not the day football invented shirt numbers. The deeper trail runs through rugby, Australia and New Zealand, with association football using numbered shirts there more than 20 years earlier. But today is the great breakthrough into English league football. Second, the original purpose was identification. The famous language of 1 for goalkeeper, 5 for centre-back, 9 for striker and 10 for creator grew from the old 2-3-5 formation and the tactical evolution that followed. And third, numbers became much more powerful than anybody in 1928 could have imagined. Pelé's 10, Beckenbauer's 5, Cruyff's 14, Baresi's 6, CR7. A practical label became football mythology. On this day in 1928, Arsenal and Chelsea opened their seasons wearing numbered shirts. The idea was supposed to make it easier to tell one footballer from another. Almost a century later, sometimes you don't even need the name. Just show us the number. That's all for episode 298 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. Tomorrow, we stay with Australia, but jump forward 77 years. August 26, 2005, 8 clubs, 1 brand new national competition, and another attempt to finally give Australian professional soccer a league that could last. The A-League kicks off. Stay tuned.